Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Hi there, and a warm welcome to our highlights of the past week, which are shaping up this time with these and other stories. Digital illusions, how Simon Pierro's iPad magic fools the eye. First-class fashion, who won the most prestigious style prize in the world? And action-packed adventure, why the new computer game Watch Dogs sets new standards. Well, they do say the hand is faster than the eye, but what about a computer program? Take modern tablet computers, for example. German illusionist Simon Pierro uses their already slick visuals to do some pretty amazing tricks and proves that modern magic has more than arrived in the digital age. And here he is in action.
He can make a spider crawl out of his screen. Or make the iPad fly like a balloon. German magician Simon Pierro has wowed crowds around the world with his tablet trickery.
I've always been excited by technology. I had a filofax when I was 12. I'd enter all these appointments, although I didn't actually have any. I loved doing tricks as well, so I decided to combine the two. You can move the ball around a little. How does it feel? Like a tablet? I can make it the right size and bring it out of the screen.
Oh my God! We go in here, and then you can easily change it.
I know. It's amazing. It's interesting. It's cool. I don't know how to do it. That's what I don't want to know because that would like take away it, but it's definitely, it's cool.
It's different from traditional magic in that a traditional magician makes things appear from nowhere, like a coin from behind someone's ear or a tennis ball out of thin air. I combine that with my tablet. I search for eggs and get the right picture, and then make it look like the eggs are coming out of the tablet.
Dass diese Eier aus dem Tablet kommen.
But the digital illusions only work because Simon has already mastered some classic magic skills, like sleight of hand. He works with software developer Masashi Beheim to plan his tricks in minute detail.
The art of digital magic doesn't work without programming. I can't tell you too much about my secrets, of course. But obviously, I combine graphic representation on the iPad with my sleight of hand via special programming. Here's an example. I always leave my pen here, so I can always get hold of it.
Simon, from the city of Karlsruhe, was already a keen performer as a young boy. He got into magic when he was 16. His career took off in 2002 when he was named German Magic Champion. Since then, he's had TV appearances, accolades, and bookings all over the world.
In 1998, I set myself a goal. It was straight after I finished school. I was traveling around America with a friend, and our car kept breaking down. He asked me where I wanted to be in 10 years, when we'd be laughing about those mishaps. I wanted to be on TV with millions of people watching my tricks.
Simon has been posting videos like this one on YouTube for 3 years now. They've been viewed by millions of people.
Thanks to newest technology, this is absolutely fast. It is cheap and absolutely painless.
He's become known as the iPad wizard on social media sites.
Das war vor vielen Jahren eigentlich so gar nicht denkbar.
A few years ago, I couldn't have imagined this. It's not just being able to do things, it's about who you can show. I was lucky to get onto TV shows, but you can't compare that to the effect YouTube, Facebook, and so on have had.
Simon is constantly working on weird and wonderful new tricks. His stunning performances prove that even in the digital age, people are still fascinated by the power of magic.
Well, next up, we'll look at 4 very noble letters, LVMH. Now, the fashion connoisseurs among you might know that that's the acronym for the French luxury goods conglomerate Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, which holds the rights to more than 60 luxury brands and not just clothing. Now, it has also undertaken to support promising young designers, and this week just gave out the very first LVMH Young Fashion Designer Prize in Paris. And to the victors go the spoils, namely €300,000 in prize money. Pas mal.
Delphine Arnault, Executive Vice President of LVMH, may be at the mic, but she's backed up by some of the world's top designers. They're the star-studded jury for the inaugural Young Fashion Designer Prize.
It was very important to establish what the criterion was for the winner, and after a long discussion where each of the designers, I think, contributed what they felt it meant to give this prize, we all sort of agreed that it was about nurturing a young talent that we'd like to see evolve and grow and get the help of LVMH so that they could become, you know, a powerhouse designer in the next 10 years.
In the running are 12 finalists, including Gabriele Colangelo from Milan. And newcomer Simon Porte-Jacquemus from Paris. Among the dozen hopefuls is Tilman Lauterbach, a German-born couturier who has been living and working in Paris for the last 13 years. Capturing one of the most lucrative accolades in the fashion world would open up new horizons for the menswear specialist.
The person or brand who wins gets €300,000, which any designer could do with. If we win, I'd open a new office. I have an idea for a small store, very private and very interesting as a concept. The rest would go into production, of course.
Lauterbach set up his own label in 2005. The 36-year-old has become an established name on the scene, and his creations feature regularly at the Paris Pret-a-Porter shows. These 2 criteria qualified him for the LVMH prize, being under 40 years old and having at least 2 ready-to-wear collections under his belt.
Participation probably will give all these designers so much exposure to all of us, to the world of fashion.
The competition drew online applications from over 1,000 budding designers from across the world. A short list of just 30 were invited to Paris to rub shoulders with the crème de la crème of the fashion world.
I'm trying to imagine being in their shoes. It's an amazing experience, but also an incredible amount of pressure. So we're trying to be especially nice to them.
That pressure intensifies as the finalists have their work scrutinized by the formidable jury. Chanel creative director Karl Lagerfeld, his counterpart at Louis Vuitton, Nicolas Guéquière, and his predecessor Marc Jacobs are among the big names. Tilman Lauterbach even met his famous compatriot Karl Lagerfeld.
They were really friendly. They listened and asked the right questions, and were very interested too. It was great.
And the winner is...
Thomas Tate.
The Canadian based in London can look forward to €300,000 in prize money, plus a year of mentoring from the LVMH fashion family.
I can't believe it. It's a bit like, I need to sit down. Almost peed my pants. It's just like, oh, really?
I couldn't believe it. Like when I heard my name, I was a bit like, oh, all right.
The jury were won over by Tate's bold colors and graphic prints.
We all felt that Thomas, you know, had the talent and was interesting and a new voice, but needs the support and help financially as well as the tutelage of LVMH.
The winner's also a good fashion illustrator.
The old master Lagerfeld got his breakthrough from winning a prestigious fashion competition 6 decades ago.
It gave me my start, which is why I like being in these juries.
Despite not coming out on top, for Tilman Lauterbach, the only way is up.
We'll be in Milan for the first time, where we're the only designers to be invited by Italian Vogue to show our collection. So we're preparing for that great honor. Plus, we have countless projects in Tokyo and Asia, so plenty to do.
Seems like everyone in this competition is a winner.
Well, this past week, the hotly anticipated computer game Watch Dogs was released. Now, it's another of those really slick productions that's practically on a par with many a Hollywood film. And while they might not get a red carpet premiere, the pre-release hype of video games and those long snaking lineups outside the stores would be the envy of just about any movie box office. And so we had a look at the new blockbusters.
The star of Watch Dogs is Aiden Pierce, a vigilante who uses his smartphone to manipulate surveillance cameras, traffic lights, and even the electricity supply in a fictional version of Chicago.
Hey, how about you? Who's hungry?
He can even access the personal records of his fellow citizens. It took the Watch Dogs developers 5 years and 50 million euros to perfect the game. Nowadays, game designers have to pull out all the stops to keep players excited.
Every person walking around in Chicago has their own identity, and when Aiden Pierce interacts with them, something happens in the game. He leaves an impression behind. That's part of the innovation. You can't invent something like that in a year.
Video games are now rivaling Hollywood blockbusters in cost. The game Star Wars: The Old Republic cost 150 million euros. It's the third most expensive computer game ever made. The production and marketing of Grand Theft Auto 5 cost 200 million euros. Just hours after its release, the game's Scottish manufacturers had recouped their costs. It hasn't been released yet, but Destiny is estimated to have cost a record 360 million euros. Computer games typically cost 9-figure sums to produce these days. They have to sell a lot of copies to break even.
Producing a computer game is not like working on the set of a feature film where you walk around with a camera. Everything you see is created on a computer, so personnel costs are high. That's the biggest cost.
One of Germany's biggest training centers for computer game programmers is located in Trier. At the moment, the students are working on one of the newest gamepad systems. The sector is growing. Computer games now generate more income than feature films. At the same time, the image of computer games has changed. Almost 1 in 2 Germans regularly play computer games. Nowadays, they're even regarded as cultural assets.
It's not a medium that's regarded as new by young people, as it perhaps was in my generation. Back then, the defining medium was television. Nowadays, the computer game is increasingly becoming the defining medium for young adults.
Today's game designers have to keep dreaming up bigger and better tricks for their increasingly demanding customers. To make on-screen movement look as realistic as possible, the producers use expensive and time-consuming motion capture technology. Actors don suits kitted out with sensors, and multiple cameras are used. The technology was deployed to particularly good effect in the game Beyond: Two Souls, which hit the market last autumn. Hollywood actors Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe were employed by the Parisian game studio Quantic Dream to create the characters' movements. In Beyond: Two Souls, the distinctions between film and game become blurred.
Whether the charisma of certain actors can be transferred to virtual characters is impossible to ascertain at this point in time. It's been tried once or twice, and it was quite well received. But acting on a real set is a little different from acting on a virtual one.
But games can be produced without motion capture or Hollywood actors. The independent Swedish game Papers, Please, for example. In the role of a border guard, the player decides whether to allow immigrants to enter the country. Despite its relatively old-fashioned graphics, the game was critically acclaimed and recently won the Lara Prize for Best International Computer Game.
It's not just about investing more money, being bigger and more realistic, or having better sound effects. It's about creating intelligent entertainment. Independent games can achieve that too.
The game Watch Dogs employs impressive cutting-edge graphics. It's a high-gloss production that could almost be a film. So it should come as no surprise that there are plans afoot to turn the game into a movie.
Well, when it comes to cities, there's never getting to the bottom of the British capital, London, and what's around it is also an itinerary in itself. In fact, there's a fabulous tour that you can take of the castles in and around London that reveals the incredible history, architecture, and, of course, the glorious gardens those castles have to offer. And they often have special exhibitions. This year, for instance, one commemorating the Georgian dynasty.
London drew more overseas visitors than ever before in 2013, almost 17 million. The British capital has always been a magnet for tourists, shopping, the shows, and traditional sights, including its array of stately homes. The most famous is Buckingham Palace, the primary residence of the royal family. Kensington Palace was the final residence of Princess Diana and is now home to her son William and his family.
Kensington Palace has an extremely rich history. It was purchased as a tiny little house in the suburbs of London in the late 17th century by William III and Mary II. And since then it has been home to members of the royal family such as George I, George II, Princess Victoria, who became Queen Victoria here. She was born and grew up here. And subsequently has remained a royal home in some respects. So the Princess Margaret, the Queen's sister, lived here during the 1960s, and now it's home to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge.
The public area of the palace had 400,000 visitors last year. It's currently host to Glorious Georges, an exhibition commemorating the 300th anniversary of the Hanoverian dynasty. George I became king in 1714 and was followed by 3 namesakes. His grandson was the last reigning monarch to use Kensington Palace, and his court was graced by countless cultural icons of the day.
We have records of wonderful parties, amazing drawing rooms that the King and Queen held every week. There were illuminations in the gardens on a regular basis. Handel, the composer, and his famous Italian opera singers came here to perform, and the most fashionable people in London came to spend time here.
The Georgian era's legacy extends far outside the hustle and bustle of central London. Kew Palace in the western borough of Richmond reflects the relative modesty of George III. Predating and outpomping Kew is Hampton Court in southwest London. First home to the Tudor kings and queens in the 16th century, it later underwent Palladian and Baroque additions before George I ordered a lavish refurbishment.
Hampton Court it's a typically British compromise, as we like to say, because the Tudor palace is still there with a wonderful, great battlements, and then there's the Baroque style, which is much more European, grander, very classical. And the two there crash into each other. If you go to the middle of the palace, Clock Court, you'll find Henry VIII facing up to the Europeans, our William III, our Dutch king, and George I, our German king. side by side, and they planned to pull it all down and build a brand new palace, but of course, being British as they had to be, they didn't have enough money and there wasn't enough political support, so we ended up with this wonderful mixture of architectural styles.
The Hanoverian dynasty, who today's Queen Elizabeth is descended from, inherited the throne by a twist of fate. The Act of Settlement in 1701 disqualified Catholics from the line of succession. And so it came that a German prince, despite his remote connection to the British royal family, became George I. This anniversary year offers tourists both special exhibitions and even a sleepover party, an intimate insight into life at Georgian court. The Hanoverian kings, like their new subjects, were keen gardeners too. And every year the palace hosts the Hampton Court Flower Show, the largest horticultural extravaganza in the world, by George.
And need I underscore that there's never a dull moment here in the German capital, and this past week the DMY Design Festival opened to showcase some cutting-edge product and interior design. Well, more than 500 professionals from some 30 countries are taking part in the show, which is now over a decade old, and organizers were expecting upwards of 30,000 visitors. Well, for that reason, it is a great place for young designers to gain some exposure, and so our reporter checked out this year's favorites.
Combining the traditional and the modern is the concept behind Flowers for Slovakia, a young design project from Bratislava. The collective of students and established designers is presenting its first furniture collection at the DMY International Design Festival in Berlin.
These objects are so special because you can really see a poetic moment into this. You can feel that this is something, some symbiosis of these very old traditional pieces that got already lost. We found them in some barns, in some cellars, plus these unique design pieces from Vitra. So we have this very modern design part and we have this very handcrafted old traditional things, and we put them together.
5 years ago, the designers Lars Kempa, Peter Ola, and Mikala Lipkova prepared the ground for Flowers for Slovakia in the capital Bratislava. Their objective was to develop contemporary designs that would incorporate elements of their home country's history. For their first project in 2011, 12 design students joined them in creating a glass collection inspired by Slovakian fairy tales.
What is the connection point between Handloved Care and the current collection is the topic of Slovakia and the topic of tradition.
Work on the current furniture collection began in July last year. The project initiators took some students along to an old village in the outback of Slovakia, where they looked around for old pieces of furniture and acquainted themselves with traditional cabinet-making methods.
I think folk art in Slovakia is, in a way, shared with the region we are in, with Central Europe. We were using very simple things made from the resources we had, like wood and linen, and in a way this simplicity is very charming. And I think this is something that is not very much seen in Slovak design, and we would like to wake it up.
The 15 design students modified the historical pieces for several weeks, adding elements by the renowned Swiss furniture maker Vitra. The final result was the 17 handmade, one-of-a-kind pieces of the Lost and Found collection.
I think these objects are very unique and very authentic, and this is maybe topic also for international design and theory of contemporary design. You have to be authentic and very, very unique to be interesting for an audience.
Back in Berlin, more than 150 exhibitors from the world over are presenting their latest creations in a hangar at the decommissioned Tempelhof Airport. The Slovakian designers are among the front runners for the award. The DMY is one of Germany's biggest arenas for young product designers and an opportunity for up-and-coming designers to network.
We don't know what our next season will look like, which kind of materials we will use, but this one thing is really for sure. We really want to create new, unique objects again, and we want to find really highly motivated people.
It's a formula that's proving successful. After Berlin, the collection will be moving on to London and Milan.
And that's all for this edition of our Euromaxx Highlights. Hope you enjoyed it, and until we meet again, alles Gute aus Berlin und auf Wiedersehen.